The wind tore across the desert, carrying with it the dust of a land that had long forgotten peace. The sun burned overhead, baking the earth until it cracked, and in the distance, a lone rider made his way toward the small town of Perdition. His name was Cassian Rourke, a man whose past was whispered about in every saloon from Texas to Arizona. Some said he was a bounty hunter. Others claimed he was an outlaw who killed his own gang. Few knew the truth that Cassian was a man fueled by vengeance, a soul wandering with no compass but the blood that etched deep into his heart. The town appeared like a mirage, its wooden shacks leaning against the wind, its streets empty but for a few wary drifters and the sound of horses stomping in the dirt. A place like Perdition was where men came to disappear, but Cassian hadn't come to hide. He had come for one man, Silas Kane. The name alone brought a bitter taste to Cassian's mouth. Kane, the man who had put a bullet in his brother's chest, who had burned their ranch to the ground, who had turned his world into ashes. Kane wasn't just an outlaw, he was a disease, a plague spreading violence wherever he set foot. And Cassian had sworn he would bury him, even if it meant walking through hell itself. Cassian dismounted, boots sinking into the dust as he tied his horse outside the saloon. He pushed the swinging doors open, and silence fell inside. Every pair of eyes turned to him, some wary, others curious, and a few filled with recognition. The bartender, a wiry man with a crooked nose, polished a glass and spoke cautiously. "You lookin' for someone, stranger?" Cassian's voice was low, heavy with years of rage. "Silas Kane." The name was enough to drain the color from the room. Conversations died, chairs scraped against the floor, and a woman carrying a tray of whiskey stumbled, spilling half of it before rushing away. The bartender leaned in close, whispering like the walls themselves might be listening. "Best forget that name. Kane runs Perdition now. He's got men on every corner, killers who'd slit your throat for the price of a bottle. If you're smart, you'll ride out while you still can." Cassian's eyes hardened. "I didn't ride all this way for smart." He turned and walked out, the weight of silence trailing him. He could feel the eyes watching from behind shuttered windows, the fear Kane had sown into the people. That fear only stoked Cassian's resolve. Kane wasn't just a man anymore, he was a tyrant, a shadow strangling the town. Night fell, and Perdition changed. Fires burned outside the saloon, men drank and laughed, and Kane's gang swaggered through the streets, their guns gleaming under the lantern light. Cassian waited in the shadows, his hand resting on the revolver at his hip. Every scar on his body pulsed with memory of the night his brother screamed as the fire devoured their home. The sound of Kane's laughter carried on the wind, the promise he had carved into his soul, vengeance. Then he saw him. Silas Kane, stepping out of the saloon with a cigar clenched between his teeth, dressed in a black duster and wide-brimmed hat. His eyes were cold, like a rattlesnake coiled and waiting. He was surrounded by men, but Cassian only saw him. Kane. The name cut through the night like a gunshot. The laughter stopped, boots shuffled, hands reached for holsters. Kane froze, then turned, a cruel smile curling his lips when his gaze found Cassian. Well, Kane drawled, his voice dripping with mockery. "I'll be damned. Cassian Rourke, the ghost who don't know how to stay buried." Cassian stepped forward, his hand steady on his gun. "You murdered my brother. Tonight, I take what's owed." Kane laughed, a sound that spread like poison through the crowd. "Your brother begged before he died. Begged like a dog. You want vengeance? Come take it. But you won't live to see the sunrise." The air thickened. Men shifted, fingers hovering above triggers, the night waiting to explode into violence. Then, like lightning, it came. Cassian drew first, his revolver a blur, fire spitting from the barrel. The street erupted in chaos, gunshots cracked, glass shattered, bodies fell into the dust. Cassian moved like a storm, each shot finding its mark, each step pushing him closer to Kane. Kane's men dropped one by one, but there were too many. A bullet grazed Cassian's shoulder, another tore through his side, yet still he fought, driven by something greater than pain. He dove behind a trough, reloaded, then rose again, eyes locked on Kane, who stood at the end of the street with a shotgun in hand. "You can't kill me, Rourke," Kane roared. "I'm the law here. You're nothing but rot," Cassian spat, his voice ragged but unyielding. They moved in unison, guns raised, hearts pounding. The world seemed to hold its breath as two lives, bound by blood and hate, faced each other under the watchful eyes of a broken town. Then came the final shots, a deafening, blinding, final. Cassian staggered, the force of Kane's bullet slamming into his chest. But his own revolver spoke in the same heartbeat, the round tearing through Kane's throat. Kane's eyes widened in shock, his cigar falling to the ground as he collapsed into the dust, choking on his own blood. The silence that followed was deafening. Cassian fell to his knees, the weight of years pressing down on him. Blood poured from his wounds, staining the dirt dark. The townsfolk emerged slowly from the shadows, their faces etched with disbelief and awe. The tyrant who had ruled them with an iron fist lay dead, and the man who had delivered them knelt, broken and bleeding. Cassian looked to the sky, the stars blurring in his vision. He thought of his brother, of laughter around the fire, of promises made and never kept. He thought of vengeance, and how it had consumed him, left him hollow even in victory. "Rest now," he whispered, though whether to his brother or to himself, no one could say. As the dawn broke, the people of Perdition buried Silas Kane in an unmarked grave outside town. They buried Cassian Rourke beside the chapel, though none knew if he had lived or died when they laid him down. To them, he was more than a mana, he was a reckoning, a fistful of vengeance that had shattered their chains. And in the years to come, when the desert winds carried whispers through the streets of Perdition, folks would tell the story of Cassian Rourke, the man who rode into hell for justice, and left behind a legend.